it's Neenah, and I'm so excited to be bringing you a project featuring the new Mama Elephant May release. I'm going to be using two of the new products today to create this beautiful layered floral design, and I think this is such a fun way to use these two products together to make this really lovely card. Alright, so I'm going to start by taking the botanical envelope die set. I'm going to cut out the envelope and the two coordinating outline pieces that come with it. I'm going to tape them down onto some apricot cardstock from Fawn, and then I can run these through my die cut machine. After die cutting, I'll carefully remove the purple tape that I used to hold them down and lay these pieces aside so that I can work on assembling. The outlines of this die set are very delicate, and I'm going to be using some liquid glue to adhere them together. I chose multi-matte medium because this will dry clear with a matte finish, so that way if I have any glue that oozes out the side of my paper die cuts, it won't be noticeable on my project. After I've layered these pieces together to create this beautiful envelope die, I'm going to set this aside and work on stamping some flowers. The flowers are from the new Stems and Sprigs stamp set, new from Mama Elephant, and there are coordinating dies. Because there are no dies nested in between each other in this particular die set, I'm actually not going to cut them apart. Instead, I'm going to arrange all of my stamps on the back side of the dies so that I can have them all in the exact same positioning as the die set itself. So I can stamp them all at once, and then after coloring, I can die cut them all at once. This is a great time-saving tip. So I'll just carefully lay those down into my MISTI tool, and then I'll work on stamping. Because I'm going to use Copic markers to color in my images, I am going to stamp with Simon Says Stamp Intense Black ink because this ink is safe for not only Copics but also watercolors. So if you wanted to watercolor these images instead, I would definitely recommend reaching for this ink because this is a really nice crisp black ink. Now I did have a couple areas that didn't stamp all the way, so I will stamp a second time just to make sure I get a really nice clean impression. I've picked out a color palette here and I have it saved on my phone so that I can use that as reference for when I'm coloring. I chose some muted colors in yellow, red, and purple, and I'm going to add some nice teals and greens for the leafy areas. These colors are really beautiful and have a very sophisticated spring-like feel to them. As I'm coloring, I'm using 3 shades of each of my markers to get some nice shading and variation in the color tones. And I'm also working with a colorless blender in spots to help blend things together. I also wanted to create a lighter tip, so by going back over the tips of my flowers with the colorless blender, I get that nice faded out tip, which really looks very pretty. Here's where I'm coloring in the leaves. I chose some BG, some darker 70 colors for the darker teal leaves, and then I chose some G markers for the other leaves. And I do have all of the Copic colors that I'm using linked over at the blog post or in the video description below. Now you'll notice I did stamp and color a 4th flower, which I didn't end up using in my finished project. So I'm just going to set that one aside and use that for another project later. After I've colored all of my images, I rearrange the dies back over top of my stamped images, and I'll tape them down and run them through my die cut machine. Now I did manage to shift that leaf image down along the bottom when I was stamping, so I did have to die cut that one separately. But this is a great time-saving tip, and I got to cut and color all of these really quickly and easily by using this die cutting trick. Now that I'm ready to assemble these leaves and flowers, I'm tucking them into the envelope, which cuts a slit in the middle so you can tuck things in between it. This would also be cute to tuck a little note inside as well. I'm going to tape them down on the back side to hold them all in place, and I'm going to also then use foam tape to adhere everything down, and that's also going to give some nice pop and dimension for all of these pieces. Now behind this envelope and on top of the card base, I did decide to add a little bit of texture. So I'm going to pull out some of the leaves that are included in the botanical envelope die set, and I'm going to cut them from white cardstock. This is so that way I can layer them behind my envelope, and this will give some really nice subtle texture behind it, but it's also going to not distract from the actual floral elements that are the main focal point. By cutting it from white cardstock, it's going to give a little bit of contrast off of the cream card base that I chose for the card itself, but again, it's also going to keep it from being distracting from the rest of my flowers. This is a great tip for adding just a little bit of texture to your card. Alright, so now we're ready to add a sentiment. I picked out a greeting from the Stems and Sprigs stamp set, and I'm going to emboss this onto black cardstock using white embossing powder. So after I sprinkle on the embossing powder, I'll heat set this with my heat gun and layer this over top of the bottom portion of the envelope. Our card is just about done, but I wanted to add a little bit of sparkle and shine. So I'm going to pull out some Moonshine sequins from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to layer these in and around the florals, giving a little bit of shimmer and shine to the finished card project. I hope that you enjoyed today's project, which features 2 of the new products from Mama Elephant's May release. There are a lot of other beautiful products in this new collection, so I hope you will check that out. I have links to the new release in the video description below or over on our blog. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Please be sure to subscribe for more weekly inspiration, and thank you so much for tuning in today. I will be back soon with more to share, and until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye!